Welcome to Goats Gardens and Healthy Tips. So I'm very excited. We are going to get the gardens in. We've been working really hard on getting the gardens all set up, and it's soon to be planting. It's May 8th, I believe, today. Many years I haven't planted until Memorial Day weekend, which is the end of May. We're in Minnesota, and we just have really back and forth weather during the month of May. It's unpredictable, but I'm looking at the forecast and things are looking pretty nice. It's 70, going to be 75 today, and the next week the 10-day forecast shows really nice. So I might be putting some things in the ground, some of the cool weather things. But really glad that we just have the garden set up. So I'm going to show you how we have the garden set up, and then I'll let you know what I'm going to be planting. So I've been growing garden for quite, probably most of my adult life, except for a period of time when all three of my kids were in a lot of activities and I had gone back to working full time and I just didn't have time to, so I let it go. But we've been back at it for quite a few years, and in the last probably 4 years gotten a little bit more serious about it by, number one, putting up these fences and gates, keeping the animals out, including you, Riley. Yes. And we put up these fences, these garden fences, but I also put chicken wire on the lower 3 feet just to help with the bunny load. I know the small bunnies can get through there, but it helps to prevent the larger ones from getting through. So that was one big improvement that we made to the gardens. And then second improvement that we made to the gardens was putting up some of these trellising hoops, which has added a huge benefit to growing the tomatoes and beans and cucumbers and such like that. And then last year, the other improvement that we made was putting down the irrigation. So we have the DripWorks irrigation. That was such a game changer. That was a great addition to our garden. So if you ever are questioning if it's worth investing in it and you really like to grow your food, I would say go for it, because it is an investment. We bought the one larger kit, and I'll show you, we have it in both of our gardens, and we added on to a garden this year, and it has just been such a life changer. So here is our DripWorks is hooked up. Bob has these quick connects hooked on right here where you can just push them and pull apart. We have the hoses in place that just stay here all summer, and then it goes to this main hose. This is a thicker, harder hose along the edge here that runs the whole edge. Now when it gets to the end here, you have a plug on it, but this year we added on this other garden right there, so we took the plug off and added on, which is really convenient. And then you just run them however far apart you want to run them. You can make the holes and put the connectors in, and then there's a large roll of the bleeder hose that has the holes in it that you cut from and add out. So you can space them however you want to space them. And then at the end of the year, we just put them all together. We labeled which garden it was for, tied them together, put them up in our garage loft, and labeled our hoses, which one goes where, and then it was really easy to bring out this year. We probably had everything set up in probably an hour and a half, so that was pretty awesome. That includes adding on to that garden right there. So anyway, so this is my one of my vegetable gardens. The tarped area is where I plant my summer squash. Last year I had put some winter squash in there, and that is the new addition that we put on the side. Is going to be for the winter squash and pumpkin, so it doesn't entangle in everything else. I have a little spot over here, and this was where I had planted asparagus. Now this should be the third year where we should be able to eat it, and I'm hoping it's going to come up. I'm not seeing a lot of life in there yet, so if that just doesn't work out this year, I might change it to something else, but I'm hoping that's going to work out. I had it in another garden years ago and I took it out, and I probably shouldn't have done that because it was really very healthy asparagus. Okay, so this is this garden here, and this is just going to be some rows of different varied vegetables in here, and then on the climber here is where I put tomatoes. I have put them on this climber, and I've alternated with the other climber, but they grow better over here. So I think I'm just going to leave them over here this year and do it the same way. All right, Riley got scared because there's someone shooting target practice or something. She's really scared of that. Okay, then we added on over here. This is about 11 feet by 24 feet. And we add, and I believe this garden is like maybe 25 feet, 25 by 25. And this is another 11 feet by 20, 24, 25 feet. And that's going to be, like I said, just squash and winter squash and pumpkin. And that can just take over that whole space then and not entangle anything else. I'm thinking about putting some vertical things in there for it to climb on as well. So that is that garden. On the ground of the garden, we put our wonderful compost down, and before that I put some milky spore down to help with our Asian beetle issue. And let's see what else. I put milky spore down. I put some azomite, which is a rock mineral, and then we put the compost on, raked that out, and then I added alfalfa pellets. So you can see how they're puffed up right now because it rained. So that was like perfect timing. And the alfalfa pellets, the alfalfa pellets, they're just horse alfalfa pellets with nothing else in them, and those will add a really good fertilizer, nitrogen source to the garden. So that one is prepped and ready to go. The other addition I made to the garden this year is we added this above ground unit right on the other side of the vegetable garden here, and I've been wanting to try to plant some Jerusalem artichokes. I know that they're very healthy, and also they have some other properties that can be used. I saw from another YouTube person that uses them to make a natural insecticide for their plants. So I wanted to try to plant some of those, and they really spread and can take over. So I put them in their own little place, and we'll try that this year too and see how that works. Anyways, I put this up last year as well, another raised bed, and I put sunflower in there. It was just gorgeous. Gorgeous sunflowers, and then I was going to cut them and use them for putting out by the bird feeders and such, but the birds just came here and ate them, so it was really fun to watch the birds pick on the sunflowers. So I'm going to do that again this year as well. So second garden, this one is a little bit smaller. I think this one is 20 by 25, and this was my first one. We added the other one afterwards. And I got some garlic planted here that I planted. Oh my goodness, it was late when I planted that. I almost feel like it was beginning in November before I got it in. I thought it was going to be way too late, and it looks like super healthy, so I'm excited about that. This garden is also going to be rows of vegetables. And the trellis here last year was pretty much all green beans, pole beans. I had such an excellent crop last year that I have probably 4 like grocery shopping bag size bags filled with frozen bags of green beans in it in the freezer yet. So I might use part of this trellis for something else. I'm not sure yet. We eat a lot of green beans. I use them in making the dog food, and they're just like a really healthy, good food. So not sure yet, but anyway, so this is the other garden getting ready to go. Everything prepped and ready to go. Got one more spot that I want to show. So I'm just going to show you my little way that I plan this out, and then I will get everything in, and then we'll kind of do a review of how I decided to plant everything and where I decided to put it. Riley's not normally in the garden, but she thinks she needs to be in here helping me talk about this right now. So that's why we have the fence. So anyways, the first thing I do before I start planting is I plan things out on a piece of paper. So I have my little clipboard, and I've had this for several years. I've got all my past year information on here that I can refer to. And so I just come out here in the evening and I draw out my 2 main vegetable gardens on my piece of paper. And then now we have the irrigation that we've had the last couple of years. So I put down where the irrigation lines are, and I put down where our hoop is for climbing, where I have the asparagus planted, and then on the other garden where I have the garlic already planted. And then I decide where I'm going to plant everything. And so this really helps me to be able to plan out what I'm going to be able to fit in according to what I have for plants and seeds. So that is the other thing that I do, is I make a list in my pile of papers here. I make a list of everything that I'm going to plant this year, that I know I'm going to plant right now this year. Seeds that I have gotten and plants that I have planted. So that goes on the list. And then I start looking at position of where I want to put them according to different things, as such as companion plants or things that don't get along real well. So that's the other thing I did, is I made a list of the plants that I'm going to plant, the seeds and plants I'm going to plant, and then what their companion plants are, what they get along and grow well next to, and what they don't grow so well next to. And so then I refer to that when I'm planning out what I'm going to plant in the garden. I've done this the last few years, and that seems to work out really well. Also, now that I've got the irrigation in, I'm planting a little bit differently. And so I take that into consideration when I'm planting as too. And I'll show you that in just a moment. So the other thing that I really think works out well is I have this nice little plastic container that I bought online a few years ago. And this is just really handy for keeping my seeds. It's got several of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so 20 of these little containers, and then I mark them on the side what kind of seeds I'm putting in there. For example, this one is my beans, and so I have all my bean seeds in here. You know, so I've just got to mark squash, cucumber, pumpkin, melon, lettuce, greens, celery, carrots, beets, peppers, herbs, flowers, onions, radishes. So some of them I have combined, but I have them all in their containers, which makes it really easy to access them. Also, it's really good to keep them when I haven't used the whole packet. I can put the packet back in there and keep it safely. And I seal the packet back up with like painter's tape, that green painter's tape, because if you use the Scotch tape, it kind of wrecks the packaging when you try to open it again, but that way it seals it, and yet it's easy to reopen again. And then I just take all the things that I have planted, like these are all the seeds, packet of seeds that I have planted in the greenhouse. And so I just kind of try to keep track of what I planted this year. So I'll write on here, you know, when I planted them, and I'll just put them in a little paper clip and keep them in here so I can reference back on that, like this is what I planted, and then this is when I planted it this year. So that's kind of my organization with my seeds. Works out so good. And then you can seal this up, and your seeds aren't going to get wet or damaged, you know. And then I do keep my seeds in the house when I'm not in season with them. So that's my little seed organization. The other thing that I'm planning on doing is I have my tools out here, the ones that I'm going to use initially. So I've got my hoe, and I've got these different little hand tool things, you know, for digging up where the seeds are going to go, or weeds, and my spade, shovel, and my rake. So I'll just go along the edge once again. You can see there's weeds that creep in, and I'll cut out any of the weeds before I start. I have this kind of like one of those weasel hoes that I'll use, and I'll just get rid of most of the weeds before I plant too, just to try to make things less weedy. The thing with the planting, as far as the companion planting, now these first rows right here, what I'm planning to do so far is I want to put some potatoes in. So I think I'm going to put potatoes on the one side, and what I did last year with these irrigation hoses is I planted something on one side to try to make use of both sides of the hose. I planted something on one side that was like a deeper product and food, and then the other one is above. And then I look at my companion of what goes with what. So I'm going to put some potatoes on the one side, and then I'm going to put some collard on the other side. And then on the next row, I'm going to put pole beans, because pole beans are really good to feed the potatoes. And then on the other side, there's another irrigation. I'm going to put another row of potatoes, and then I think I'm going to put some chard on the other side of that, and I'll see what else goes with potatoes. So try to keep them from not overcrowding and yet using both sides of the hose. Last year, I kind of overcrowded some things, so I'm keeping that in mind. And but I had a really successful crop, had a very successful garden. It was hard in here to navigate around because everything was so full and so producing everywhere, but it did not seem to affect the production. It was just that it was hard to navigate in here. So that's what I'm going to do. So I just thought I would show you how I organize this, because it just really helps to kind of have a plan what you're going to do. Now this might change as I'm going through here and planting, I might decide to change things up. I've got this planned out for this garden and for my other garden over there. And so I'll see how it goes with this. I might change it, but then if I change it, I'll just erase on here, and then I can keep this and I can make some notes on the back of it. So next year, when it comes time to plant again, I can see what worked this year and what might work next year according to what did not work this year. So that's what I kind of did from last year. And the one thing that last year was just that it was so full in here. It was very successful, but so full that it was hard to navigate. So the one thing I did to remedy that is we extended onto the garden on the backside there, and we put in just a separate space that's going to host our pumpkin and winter squash. And that way they're not going to be vining around in here and tangling up and everything else. I had tried to kind of trellis them last year, and they didn't really trellis very well. So I'm going to make a bigger, better attempt on that this year to put them in the new space and try to trellis them so that we can have a production that's good and yet they're not interfering with everything else in here. Okay, so I will check back after I get everything planted, and I'll kind of show you where I put everything, and then we can just kind of watch how it works this year, watch the successes with it, and the things that I need to work on better for next year. So it's always an experiment, but it's always a fun experiment, and I just really enjoy the gardening. So we'll see what grows the best this year.